Welcome back, dear listener. I'm glad you're here tonight. Do you enjoy these mysteries at bedtime, letting the story guide you to sleep? Or do you listen while traveling, perhaps on a morning train or quiet walk? I'd love to know. Share your listening habit in the comments. Your stories make this community feel alive. And if you're new here, don't miss out. We share a brand new mystery every day. Simple, cozy, suspenseful. So settle in and subscribe now, because tonight's story begins with a secret no one expected. The bells rang at 6. Snow lay across the village. Street Mary Mead was awake. A crowd gathered at the green, scarves pulled tight, breath rising in white clouds. The choir began, voices thin against the cold. "O come, all ye faithful." The carol rose into the air. Miss Marple stood at the edge, a basket in her arms, knitted mittens inside, a gift for the children. She nodded at familiar faces. Mrs. Bantry in her fur coat, Dr. Haydock with his bag, young Mary Price, hymnal in hand. But one face was missing, Henry Westlake, the man who never missed. For 15 years he had arrived, always at 6, always carrying his lantern. This morning, no lantern shone, no Henry in sight. Miss Marple frowned. A small detail, but wrong. Very wrong. The choir sang louder, yet her eyes moved to the lane, toward Westlake Manor. Through bare trees the gate stood visible. Something caught her attention. Snow pressed flat. Tracks, sleigh tracks, running to the gate. Her breath held. A sleigh. At dawn? The village owned no sleighs. Not anymore. She turned slightly. The crowd sang the refrain. No one else looked at the gates. No one else noticed. Her eyes sharpened. The tracks did not end at the gate. They turned aside, toward the stable block, toward the back of the manor. Miss Marple adjusted her scarf. The mittens felt heavy in her arm. She thought of the children waiting for breakfast. Henry Westlake had promised it. Every Christmas morning. But no light burned in his house. No movement at the windows. Only darkness. She shifted again. Habit told her to stay, to join the crowd, to sing another verse. But instinct told her otherwise. Instinct sharpened by years of watching, of listening, of seeing what others missed. Why no Henry? Why no lantern? Why sleigh tracks in fresh snow? The carol ended. Applause broke across the green. Laughter followed. Villagers turned toward the manor, ready for Westlake's breakfast. Miss Marple stayed still, her eyes fixed on the gates, on the tracks pressed deep into white snow. She drew a quiet breath, her heart steady, but her mind alert. A puzzle had begun, and she was already inside it. The choir started the next carol, but she did not sing. She stepped forward, one step closer to the gates, one step closer to answers, and there she saw it. Sleigh tracks. Fresh, clear, cut across the snow. Miss Marple left the green, her shoes pressed into the snow. The carols faded behind her. The lane to the manor was silent. No lanterns, no sign of Henry Westlake. She paused at the gates. The iron stood heavy and cold. Beyond it the house loomed, dark, every window shut tight. Strange. Henry never missed his duty. He would be there, opening doors, greeting villagers, always with a smile, always precise. But now nothing. She studied the snow again. Sleigh tracks. Not just tracks. Footprints beside them. 3 sets. Heavy boots. Small galoshes. Ordinary shoes. All moving toward the stable block. None leading back. Her breath slowed. She lifted the latch. The gate opened easily. Not locked. That was odd too. She stepped inside. The path to the house lay untouched. Snow lay even across it. No prints, no signs of movement. But the stable path was different. Clear, marked. Someone had been busy. Someone had wanted it that way. She hesitated. Should she go to the house first? Knock. On the front door? Call for Henry? Her eyes shifted again. The house windows were black. Not a single glow of firelight. But the stable block. Yes, the stable block glowed. Warm orange light. flickering through the panes, a steady hum of heat inside. Why heat the stable and not the house? Why prepare that building at dawn? She walked carefully, following the prints. Her steps matched the rhythm, one crunch after another. The closer she came, the clearer it grew. Voices, not loud, not joyful, low, pressed, urgent. She stopped just short of the door. Her hand rested on the basket. The mittens inside seemed trivial now. Something larger was here, something wrong. The door stood slightly ajar. A thin line of light spilled into the snow. She leaned closer, her ear near the wood. She listened. 2 voices. Young. Not Henry's deep tone. Not the housekeeper's. Different. The words blurred. But the tone was sharp. Not friendly. Not calm. Urgent. Agitated. Her eyes narrowed. Her instincts sharpened. Voices in the stable. No Henry. No lantern. 3 sets of tracks inside. None returning. She looked back toward the manor. Dark. Silent. Shut. She turned back to the stable. Heat inside. Light in the windows. Garlands hung, she could see the shadows. It had been decorated. For Christmas. For the village. And yet, the mood behind those walls was different. Not festive. Not peaceful. She held her breath. The next step mattered. To push the door. To enter. To see what lay waiting. Her fingers brushed the wood. Her pulse slowed. Her eyes sharpened. Inside she heard voices. Hushed. Urgent. Miss Marple pushed the stable door. It creaked open. Warmth rushed out. Inside, the stable was decorated. Garlands hung from beams. A tall Christmas tree stood bright. Presents stacked neatly beneath it. The air smelled of pine. Candles burned in holders. The room was prepared for joy. Yet the mood was heavy. Her eyes fixed. Forward. A figure sat by the gift table. Head bowed. Arms slack. Motionless. Henry Westlake, the host of Christmas. The man everyone expected. But he did not move. She stepped closer. Her shoes sank into the carpet of straw laid for the gathering. Still he did not stir. A muffler still wrapped around his throat. Overcoat still buttoned, hat resting on his knees. As if he had sat only moments before. But his head had fallen forward. His chin pressed to his chest. The posture of a man gone from life. Beside him stood 2 figures, young faces pale. His niece, Flora. His nephew, Gordon, both rigid, both staring at their uncle. Miss Marple lowered her basket, her voice calm, steady. What has happened here? Flora's lips trembled. We found him like this. Just now. Her hands clutched her coat, her eyes red. Gordon's jaw was stiff. We came to check the heating, the presents. He was all ready. He stopped. His throat caught. Miss Marple studied the body. No spilled drink, no scattered papers. But the details spoke. A brass stocking holder lay near the hearth. Not in place. Dented. Half hidden by tinsel. The mantel was half decorated. 3 stockings hung, each embroidered with names. Gordon, Flora, Mrs. Jarvis, the housekeeper. 1 hook stood bare. Henry's stocking, the largest one. Gone. Miss Marple's gaze returned to the figure in the chair. The position was unnatural. Not a man at rest. Not a man asleep. A man who had been taken by force or sudden fate. Her hand touched the table edge. The surface bore faint scratches, as though something heavy had struck against it. She looked back at Flora and Gordon. Both shifted uneasily. Flora spoke first. He must have collapsed. A stroke, maybe. Gordon nodded quickly. Yes, he had been ill. Blood pressure. The doctor said so. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed. Perhaps true, but too simple. The room spoke a different story. The dented holder, the missing stocking, the absent lantern, pieces that did not fit. The choir's singing drifted faintly from the green. So close. Yet the mood here was far removed from Christmas. Miss Marple drew a breath, her voice calm but firm. My dears, call for Dr. Haydock. At once. Flora hesitated. Do you think... But Miss Marple had already turned. her eyes fixed once more on the mantel. On the empty hook, one stocking was gone. Dr. Haydock arrived within minutes, hat tilted, bag in hand, face pale from the cold. He moved straight to the chair. Henry Westlake still sat slumped, head forward, arms limp. The doctor placed fingers at the wrist, pressed gently, waited, then shook his head. "Poor Henry," he said quietly. His voice was grave. "I'd say it was a stroke. Sudden. Quick. It happens." Flora covered her mouth. Tears brimmed. Her voice shook. He had been restless this week. Perhaps the strain. Gordon cut in. "Yes, exactly. His health was fragile. We should accept it." Dr. Haydock sighed. His blood pressure was high. I warned him. The cold, the work, the excitement of today, it was enough. He adjusted his spectacles. "Very sad, but natural." Miss Marple's eyes stayed on the scene, her voice calm. "Natural, you think?" The doctor nodded. "Without doubt. A stroke." But Miss Marple did not look convinced. Her gaze moved to the floor. There, half hidden beneath tinsel, lay the brass stocking holder, knocked from the mantel, its edge dented, out of place. She bent slowly. Her fingers brushed the metal. It was heavy, too heavy to be on the floor by chance. She said nothing. Not yet. Her eyes moved further, to the threshold of the stable. There, glitter caught her attention, small fragments, shards of glass, scattered near the door. She stepped closer, bent again, studied them. Yes, lantern glass, clear, sharp, freshly broken. She remembered. Henry Westlake always carried a lantern. Every Christmas morning. Always at 6. Always the same routine. But tonight, no lantern had been seen. She turned back to the doctor. "May I ask," she said softly, "how long ago this stroke occurred?" Dr. Haydock frowned. "Difficult to say exactly, but judging from body temperature and stiffness, an hour, perhaps 2. Early morning." Miss Marple nodded slowly. Her eyes sharpened again. "Doctor, I wonder, does it not strike you as strange that Mr. Westlake should suffer such a collapse here, in the stable block, instead of in the warmth of his home?" Gordon bristled. "Really, Miss Marple, must you question everything? My uncle was dedicated. If he wished to check the arrangements here, that is no mystery." Flora spoke quickly. "Yes, he was particular. He liked perfection. This was his habit." Miss Marple's gaze lingered on them. Her voice remained mild. "Perhaps. Yet some details trouble me." She gestured to the floor. "To that dented holder. To the broken lantern glass. To the missing stocking from the mantel. Do these details not raise concern?" The doctor bent, finally noticing. His brows drew together. "That is odd," he admitted. "Henry never misplaced his lantern." Miss Marple straightened, her eyes cool, her tone quiet but certain. This was no natural death. Inspector Slack arrived with brisk steps, coat still dusted with snow, face tight with annoyance. Christmas morning was not his choice for work. He removed his gloves, glanced around the stable, saw the body, saw the pale faces of Flora and Gordon. "Well then," he said flatly, "I hear we have trouble." Dr. Haydock stepped forward. "Stroke," he repeated, "but Miss Marple feels otherwise." Slack raised an eyebrow. "Of course she does." He looked at her. "Well, what have you spotted this time?" Miss Marple's tone stayed mild. "I've spotted missing things, Inspector, that is all." Slack frowned. "Missing things?" She gestured toward the mantel. 3 stockings hang there. One is absent. Henry's own stocking. The inspector's eyes narrowed. "And why does that matter?" At that moment, Mrs. Jarvis entered, her apron twisted in her hands, her face red from weeping. "Oh, Inspector," she cried, "this is terrible. Poor Mr. Henry. And now the stocking, too." Slack turned to her. "What about the stocking?" Her voice wavered. "Every Christmas Eve he filled it. Envelopes inside. £50 each. For the church, for the children's home, for the widow's fund. Always the same. Always 6 envelopes. £300 in all." Flora shifted uneasily. Her eyes fell to the floor. Slack scribbled in his notebook. So, £300, and now it's gone? Mrs. Jarvis nodded hard. Yes, sir, gone. I hung it myself last night, with the others, but this morning it's missing. Gordon cleared his throat. Perhaps Uncle moved it. He often handled things personally. He might have intended to distribute the envelopes himself. Miss Marple's eyes stayed fixed on him. Perhaps. Yet he never broke his tradition before. Slack stepped closer to the body. His eyes scanned the coat. He leaned down. Strange, he muttered. No chain. Henry always wore his watch chain. Mrs. Jarvis gasped. Yes, gold, from his grandfather. He never took it off. The inspector straightened. Gone as well. He tapped his notebook. So we have a dead man, a missing stocking filled with money, and a missing chain. Miss Marple spoke softly. And the chain carried a key, Inspector. The strongbox key. He kept it always with him. The box built into the breakfast hall wall. That is where larger sums were locked. Slack stared at her. And you're saying the key is gone too? Her eyes met his. Calm. Clear. Yes, Inspector. The stocking is missing. The watch chain is missing. And the key to the strongbox. She paused. Her words dropped sharp as ice. Gone with it. Inspector Slack stepped outside. Snow still fell, light but steady. The stable yard stretched white before him. Right, he muttered. Let's see what the ground tells us. He bent low, boots crunching, magnifying glass in hand. Miss Marple followed slowly, her eyes alert. She had already noticed details others ignored. Slack crouched near the path. He traced the first marks. Ordinary walking boots, size 9. Distinctive wear on the heel, likely Henry Westlake's own. He moved further. Another line of prints. Heavy military boots, regulation soles, size 10. Gordon's. His pencil scratched in his notebook. Then the third. Smaller. Decorative pattern on the sole. Galoshes. Flora's. Miss Marple nodded. Yes, I thought as much. Slack rose. 3 sets, all leading here. That much is clear. Marple tilted her head. And how many lead back? Slack paused. He followed the tracks again, his brows drew together. 2 sets, Gordon's and Flora's. Both returned to the house. He looked again at the first line. Henry's boots. Straight to the stable door, but no return. That matches, he said. He was found inside. Dead. Marple's eyes narrowed. True, but the timing matters. Slack gave her a look. Explain yourself. She stepped closer to the prints. The snow had fallen since midnight. The depth varied across the yard. Notice, she said softly, some prints are faint, already filling with snow. Others are sharp, newer. Which are which? Slack crouched again. He compared the edges. His frown deepened. By heaven, he muttered. You're right. Westlake's prints are the newest. They pressed into thinner snow. The others are older, half-covered. He straightened. But that makes no sense. Marple's voice was quiet. Unless he was brought here later. Brought to the stable after Gordon and Flora had already been. Flora's face drained of color. That's impossible. Uncle always came here first. He checked the fire, the gifts, everything. Always. Gordon's tone was sharp. She's twisting it. The storm confused the prints. You can't judge so finely. Slack shook his head. Snow doesn't lie. These marks are recent. Very recent. Made after yours. Yet Henry lay dead in that chair when you claim you found him. Marple's gaze lingered on the tracks. Her words came slow. Then the question is simple. How could the dead man leave the freshest prints? Silence settled in the yard. The stable door hung open behind them. The choir's distant singing carried faintly from the village. Inspector Slack shut his notebook. His voice cut the air. Explain this, Gordon. Explain it now. But Gordon said nothing. Flora's hands trembled. Neither stepped forward. Miss Marple's eyes held steady. Her tone was final. Westlake's own prints were the freshest, yet he was dead. The search began at once. Inspector Slack gave orders. Every corner, every room. Check it all. The stable block held 3 small storage rooms. Old tack, wooden bins, shelves stacked with boxes. Slack led the way. Marple followed silently. Her eyes noted details. Nothing missed her. The first room was empty. Only rope and straw. No sign of anything disturbed. The second room was darker. Shelves along the walls. Boxes piled high. Slack pushed one aside. His hand brushed cold metal. He pulled it free. A lantern. Brass. Heavy, but broken. Panels shattered. Edges dented. Dark stains smeared across the surface. Marple stepped closer. Her voice low. Henry's lantern. Always carried it. Always the same one. Slack turned it in his hands. Blood marked the rim. Candle stubs still inside. Wax hardened down the side. "This," he said grimly, "is no accident." Dr. Haydock examined it quickly. "Yes, heavy enough to strike. Those stains blood, I'd say." Slack set it on a crate. "Now we have a weapon." Marple's eyes moved to the floor. Fragments of glass scattered there too. Fresh, sharp, broken in haste. "Inspector," she said softly, "notice the wax. Not from the stable lights. This wax belongs to the lantern alone." Slack nodded. "Then whoever killed Henry used this, and hid it here." He turned toward Gordon. "Step forward. Let's see your boots." Gordon stiffened. "My boots?" "Yes," Slack barked. "Lantern glass scatters. Sharp shards cling. If you touched it, your boots will tell us." Reluctantly, Gordon moved closer, his military boots heavy on the floor. Slack crouched. He lifted the left heel. There it was. Small, glittering pieces wedged deep, shards of lantern glass, and a smear of hardened wax across the sole. Slack looked up, his tone cold. "Well, Gordon, care to explain this?" Flora gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. Gordon's face drained of color. I don't know. Must have stepped on fragments. The lantern was already broken when we found Uncle." Slack's eyes narrowed, broken, hidden, blood-stained, and the pieces cling only to your boots. Not Flora's, not Mrs. Jarvis's, only yours. Gordon said nothing, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. Marple's voice broke the silence, soft but certain. "Glass does not lie, my dear boy." All eyes turned back to Gordon. The lantern sat heavy on the crate. Its broken frame gleamed dully in the light. The stable seemed colder now, every sound sharp, every breath heavy. And on Gordon's boots, the truth glittered. Glass shards clung to Gordon's boots. Inspector Slack stood firm, his gaze locked on Gordon. The broken lantern sat heavy between them. "Well?" Slack demanded. "You'll explain this. Now." Gordon shifted his weight, hands clenched. Eyes lowered. Flora whispered, "Gordon, say something." He didn't. Not at first. His chest rose and fell. His jaw tightened. Slack's voice cut again. "You said you only found your uncle's body. But your boots tell another story. You handled that lantern. You struck something. You hid it." Gordon snapped his head up. "That's a lie." Slack moved closer. "Then why the shards? Why the wax? Why only you?" Silence pressed the room. Flora trembled. Mrs. Jarvis wrung her hands. Miss Marple's eyes stayed steady. She spoke gently. "Gordon, denial will not help you. Tell us what truly happened." He looked at her. For a moment, his defiance wavered. Then his shoulders sagged. "All right," he muttered. "Yes, I confronted him. I admit that much." Flora gasped. "Gordon," he raised a hand. "Let me finish." Uncle Henry had been talking nonsense, changing his will, threatening everything we've worked for. I had to speak with him. I had to make him see sense. Slack's pen scratched across his notebook. "You went to him when?" "Early morning, around 5, before the carols." "And where?" "In his study." He was awake, muttering over papers. He told me he intended to cut us out. Said the manor might go to charity. To strangers. Do you understand? Everything gone. His voice cracked. I couldn't let that happen. I told him so. I begged him to reconsider. He wouldn't listen. Marple leaned forward. What happened then? Gordon's hands shook slightly. He grew angry, shouted, said Flora and I had grown soft, that we weren't worthy. He called us selfish, ungrateful. Flora's eyes filled with tears. Uncle would never. He did. Gordon snapped. Every word cut. He said by tonight it would all be settled. A codicil drawn, signed, witnessed. The manor gone. Slack's tone sharpened. And the lantern? Gordon's voice dropped. He had it in his hand. His old lantern, always carried it. He waved it when he shouted. I grabbed it. I thought if I disarmed him, he'd calm down. But he struggled. The lantern slipped. It struck him. He closed his eyes. It wasn't meant. I swear it. He staggered, fell back, silent. Mrs. Jarvis let out a sob. Flora covered her face. Slack's voice cut cold. You hit him with it. You admit that? Gordon's words came flat. Yes, but it was not murder. His eyes fixed on the floor. I never meant to kill him. Inspector Slack ordered the house searched. Start with the study, he said. If Gordon spoke truth, we'll find proof there. The group moved into the manor. Cold halls, silent rooms, no fire lit. They reached the study. The door stood half open. Inside, papers scattered across the desk. Drawers left ajar, and against the far wall, the safe. Its door gaped open. Slack stepped forward first. He peered inside. Empty, he muttered. Not a coin, not a paper, Flora gasped. But Uncle always kept ledgers there. Household accounts, bonds, everything. Miss Marple's eyes swept the room. Unless someone removed them, or unless he wished us to think so. Slack grunted. Search every drawer. They pulled books, papers, files, bundles of letters, receipts tied with ribbon. But nothing explained the empty safe. Mrs. Jarvis wrung her hands. He never left it open. Never in my 30 years here. Slack looked up. Then someone opened it this morning. Miss Marple's gaze lingered on the shelves. Rows of hymnals. Caroling books stacked in neat piles. Her hand moved gently. She lifted one. It felt heavier than the rest. She opened it. Inside, folded tight, lay a document. Not music. Legal writing. Slack took it quickly. He unfolded the sheets. Read the top line aloud. Last will and testament of Henry Westlake. Flora's breath caught. A new will, Miss Marple corrected softly. Codicil. An addition. Slack scanned the lines. His brow furrowed. This was signed last week, witnessed by Jarvis and the vicar. He read further. Each word chilled the room. Henry Westlake revoked his earlier terms. The manor, the estate, the entire property left to one person. Slack's voice hardened. It left the manor to Flora alone. Inspector Slack folded the codicil. He tapped it against his notebook. So, the manor goes to Flora, not Gordon, not the village trust, to her alone. The room grew silent. Only the wind pressed against the windows. Flora's lips parted. I didn't know. Truly, I didn't. Slack's eyes narrowed. Convenient, though. Very convenient. Gordon spoke quickly. She knew nothing. Uncle would never have told her. He liked to shock, to keep control. Slack scribbled in his notes. Perhaps. But money changes everything, and I want to know about his trust fund. Flora frowned. The fund? Yes, Slack said firmly. Henry Westlake held thousands there. Investments, charity disbursements. He kept meticulous accounts, but some papers are missing from the safe. Why? Mrs. Jarvis trembled. Missing? Impossible. He recorded every penny. Each December he showed me the ledgers. I balanced the household books against them. Marple's quiet voice cut through. And were they always exact, my dear? Or did you ever find them irregular? Mrs. Jarvis blinked. Irregular? No. Or perhaps once or twice. But he always explained. He said dividends shifted. He said receipts delayed. Marple's eyes softened. Or he wished you to believe so. Slack looked at Flora. Well, You handled accounts sometimes, didn't you? Did you notice? Flora shook her head quickly. No, Uncle never allowed me near them. He guarded those books. He trusted no one. Marple studied her carefully. A pause, measured. Then she spoke. But you must have known, Flora. At least a little. Women in the house always notice small things. Bills left out. Balances that don't match. Amounts withdrawn too quickly. Flora's hands gripped the back of a chair, her knuckles white. I didn't. I swear it. I never touched his papers. Slack moved closer. You benefit from the Codicil. You were here this morning. Your footprints led to the stable, and now we find accounts missing. Why should I not suspect you? Gordon's jaw clenched. She's innocent. If anyone quarreled with him, it was me. Slack turned. Oh, you've admitted as much. But motive is not yours alone. Money tempts all. Marple stepped nearer to the desk. She touched the edge of a ledger fragment left behind. One torn page. Figures written in Henry's own hand. Columns didn't add up. Her eyes lifted. Her tone was soft, but sharp. These numbers are wrong. Quite wrong. Someone was moving money, and someone else must have noticed. All eyes turned to Flora. She stood very still. Her breath shallow. Her face pale. Miss Marple did not accuse outright. She merely observed. But when one benefits from both a codicil and missing funds, it creates the appearance of knowledge. Slack's pen paused. He waited. So did the others. Flora opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came. Only silence. And in that silence, her face blanched. Too quickly. The search widened. Inspector Slack ordered every room checked, every cupboard opened, every corner searched. But Miss Marple turned her attention elsewhere, to the long table in the breakfast hall. It stood ready for the feast, plates stacked, napkins folded, silver polished. And at the center, the Christmas cake, a tall fruit cake, white icing smooth across the surface, marzipan beneath, decorated with holly sprigs and candles. Mrs. Jarvis hovered near, her eyes red, her hands tight on her apron. It was cut at dawn, she said softly, by Mr. Henry himself. He always made the first slice. It was his tradition. Marple glanced at the cake. The top layer showed the cut. But not an ordinary slice. Slack leaned closer. That's no neat wedge. Look at it. Indeed. The cut was rectangular, not shaped for eating, not served on a plate. Mrs. Jarvis nodded quickly. Yes. I thought it strange. He lifted the marzipan carefully, slid something inside, then pressed it down again. I said nothing, of course. It was not my place. Slack's eyes narrowed. What did he put there? Her face grew troubled. I could not see. It was small, but he handled it as though it were precious. Marple reached with care. Her fingers traced the marzipan's edge. She lifted it gently. Beneath, a hollow space remained. Everyone leaned closer. The cavity was clear, large enough to hide something flat. Not food, something deliberate. Marple's voice was quiet. A hiding place. Clever. Few would notice beneath marzipan. Slack muttered. And whatever it was, it's gone now. Flora shifted uneasily. Perhaps Uncle hid one of his envelopes. He liked to surprise the guests. Marple shook her head. No envelope fit so snug, and Henry was never careless with gifts. This was not for amusement. Gordon spoke low. Then what was it? Marple's eyes sharpened, her voice calm but firm. A key, small, flat, and vital. A key to the strongbox, perhaps. Hidden here until the moment he needed it. Slack slammed his notebook shut. Then someone else knew. They opened it. They took it. Silence pressed the hall. Flora's hands twisted her scarf. Her eyes flicked toward the cake. Too quickly. Marple saw it. She noted the glance. She stored it quietly. The cake stood heavy on the table. Once, a symbol of festivity. Now, a sign of deceit. Beneath its sweet layers lay proof. Not of celebration, of concealment. The guests in the room felt the weight of it. Slack's voice cut the silence. We'll search every drawer until that key appears. But Miss Marple already knew. She touched the hollow with one fingertip, her voice low. Certain. A cavity. Perfect for hiding a key. Inspector Slack returned to the study. The codicil lay on the desk. The safe stood open, bare. He faced Flora. Your uncle left the manor to you. You were here this morning. You saw the cake. You saw the safe. Why shouldn't I call you the thief as well as the heiress? Flora shook her head quickly. No, I never touched his papers. Never. Gordon stepped forward. She didn't. I told you, Inspector. Uncle hated me. He wanted me cut out. Flora wasn't even aware. Slack ignored him. He jabbed his pencil toward Flora. You're the one who gains. A whole estate dropped in your lap. Money missing from accounts. Stocking gone. Key gone. Every trail leads back to you. Flora's lips trembled. You're wrong. Miss Marple stepped closer, her eyes calm, her voice low. Are they wrong, my dear? Think carefully before you answer. Henry was precise. Exact. No sum escaped his notice. But I wonder, whose hand adjusted the figures? Whose hand smoothed the numbers just enough? Flora stiffened. Her eyes widened. I don't understand. Marple's gaze stayed fixed. You do. I've seen fragments of the ledgers, totals changed, columns corrected. But the handwriting was not Henry's. Softer strokes, smaller letters, more delicate. Mrs. Jarvis gasped. You mean? Marple nodded. Yes, a woman's hand. Flora's hand. Flora's breath caught. Her color drained. No, it was only once. Only a small adjustment. Slack's eyes gleamed. So you admit it. You doctored the accounts. Her voice broke. I didn't mean to. I only wanted time. Uncle kept everything so rigid. The bills grew. The tradesmen pressed. I borrowed. Only borrowed. Marple's voice pressed gently. But Henry discovered it. That is why he drew the codicil. He would not trust you with the estate. Yet he gave it to you all the same. Perhaps out of love. Perhaps to keep peace. But he saw what you had done. Flora's hands clutched her scarf. Her body shook. Her words tumbled out. I never thought he'd notice. The sums were small at first, then larger. I planned to repay them. Truly I did. Slack leaned closer. And when he confronted you, did you silence him with a lantern like your brother claims he did? Flora gasped. No. I swear I never touched him. I only altered the accounts. Nothing more. Gordon stepped forward again. She is telling the truth. Uncle despised us both, but she would never strike him. Slack glared at them both. One lies. Perhaps both. And until I prove which, you are equally guilty in my eyes. Flora collapsed into the chair. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Broken. Defeated. I only meant to borrow it. The knock came at the study door. A villager stepped in. The postman, cap in hand. Face uneasy. Begging your pardon, Inspector, but I thought you should know what I saw. Slack waved him forward. Well, out with it, man. The postman cleared his throat. This morning, just before 5, I was walking the lane. Deliveries, you know. And I saw young Gordon, with the sleigh. Flora's head jerked up. A sleigh? The man nodded. Yes, miss. Old thing, but still sturdy. The horse pulling steady, and Gordon driving. Slack's eyes sharpened. Where exactly? By the bend near the church. Heading toward the manor, he cracked the reins hard. In a hurry. Gordon's jaw tightened. That's nonsense. I never touched a sleigh. The postman shook his head. I saw you plain. You sat upright, coat collar high. No mistake. Slack scribbled in his notebook. Who was with him? The postman hesitated. There was another figure, on the back seat, wrapped in a blanket, sitting very still. Flora's hand flew to her mouth. Still? Yes, miss. Not moving, not waving, just sitting stiff, as though asleep. Or, worse. All eyes turned to Gordon. Slack's voice was sharp. You deny this too? Gordon's face flushed. It's a lie. He must have seen someone else. I was in my room. Ask Flora. Flora's lips trembled. I thought he was. I don't know. I didn't check. The postman stood firm. I know what I saw. It was Gordon. And someone under that blanket. Miss Marple's eyes fixed on Gordon, her tone quiet. Why a blanket at dawn? Why cover the passenger so completely? Unless one wished to hide them. Gordon glared at her. You twist everything. I said I argued with Uncle, yes. But I left him alive. Whatever else you suggest is false. Slack tapped his pencil. Alive? Then who was wrapped in that blanket? Silence. Heavy. Cold. Mrs. Jarvis wept softly into her apron. Flora stared at her brother. Gordon, was it Uncle? He shot her a fierce look. No. Slack leaned closer. Then prove it. If not Henry, who else? Name the passenger. Or admit what we already know. Gordon's fists clenched. His mouth opened. But no words came. The postman repeated firmly. I saw what I saw. Gordon drove that sleigh. And the figure beside him never moved. Miss Marple's voice was steady. One cannot argue with the truth of eyes. A witness saw, and what he saw must be explained. The lantern still sat broken in the corner. The codicil still lay on the desk. But the image of the sleigh now pressed into every mind. Gordon, driving fast. A figure beside him, wrapped in a blanket, sitting very still. Gordon's silence stretched. The room held its breath. Flora stared at him, pale. Slack slammed his notebook shut. Well? The inspector barked. Speak, man. Denial won't save you. Gordon's shoulders sagged. His eyes fell to the floor. His voice came rough. All right, you want the truth. I'll give it. Flora gasped. No, Gordon, don't. He raised a hand. It's time. I can't carry it any longer. Slack leaned in. Say it then. Gordon swallowed hard. I argued with him. You know that already. Uncle Henry raged. He shouted about the will. He said I'd get nothing. Not a penny. He laughed in my face. His hands shook. I couldn't bear it. I lost control. I grabbed the lantern. I struck him. Once. Hard. Flora cried out. Her hand covered her mouth. You didn't. I did, Gordon snapped. I swung it. It caught him on the temple. He fell back against the desk. I thought he was finished. I thought I had killed him. Slack's eyes gleamed. At last, some honesty. But Gordon shook his head fiercely. No, you don't understand. I panicked. I didn't plan it. I didn't mean it. He collapsed, silent. I thought it was the end. His breath came sharp. I couldn't leave him there. Not in the study. The servants would wake. The villagers would arrive. Everyone would know. I had to move him. Marple's voice cut in softly. So you fetched the sleigh? Gordon nodded once. Yes. I dragged him out. Dead weight. Covered him with a blanket. I drove fast, back toward the stable block. I wanted to set him there, to make it seem he died of illness while preparing the hall. Flora sobbed. You fool. You utter fool. Gordon pressed on. I placed him in the chair by the gifts. I fixed his coat. I laid the hat across his knees. I thought it was done. I thought the lie would hold. Slack stepped forward. And you hid the lantern in the storeroom. The blood, the shards, the wax, all yours. Gordon's voice cracked. Yes. I shoved it behind boxes, hoping it would stay hidden, hoping no one would look too closely. The inspector's tone was sharp. So you admit you killed him? But Gordon shouted back. No, that's the point. I thought I had, but I didn't. Everyone froze. Flora stared through tears. What do you mean? Gordon's voice dropped to a whisper. When I unwrapped the blanket, when I looked again in the stable, he was breathing. Weak, shallow, but breathing. Uncle Henry was still alive. The room went silent. Every face turned cold with shock. Gordon's final words hung in the air. But when he unwrapped the blanket, Henry still breathed. Flora sat rigid, her eyes fixed on the desk, her lips pressed tight. Slack turned on her. Well, girl, your brother's confessed enough to hang himself. But what of you? What part did you play? Flora trembled. I tried to protect us. Gordon snapped. Flora, stop. But she raised her hand. No, Gordon. It's finished. Hiding won't help now. Her voice cracked. Uncle found out I borrowed from the accounts. He threatened to expose me. He said the Codicil would save the estate but ruin my name. I couldn't let that happen. Slack's eyes narrowed. So what did you do? Flora swallowed hard. I burned the pages, the receipts, the fragments that proved it. I fed them to the fire in the breakfast hall. I thought if the papers vanished, so would the shame. Mrs. Jarvis gasped. Miss Flora, Flora pressed on, but it wasn't enough. Uncle still had the stocking. He still had the key to the strongbox. The truth lived there. The money. The ledgers. He could ruin us with a single turn of the lock. Slack's voice was sharp. And where are those now? Flora's hands twisted. I tried to hide them. I thought if no one could find them, no one could accuse me. When Gordon dragged him to the stable, I saw my chance. I took the stocking. I took the key. Miss Marple's eyes sharpened. And what did you do, my dear? Flora's gaze fell. I pushed them into the strongbox itself, stocking, key, all of it. I closed the lid and slammed the door. Shut. Slack barked a laugh. Into the strongbox? You mean you locked the very key inside? Flora nodded miserably. Yes. I thought it clever. No one could open it again. Not without breaking the iron. And who would dare? With Uncle lying dead. Marple's tone was quiet. Then everything remains there still. The envelopes, the money, the proof. Flora's hands shook. Yes, but no one can reach it. Not now. Not ever. Gordon groaned. You fool. You've trapped us both. Slack scribbled furiously. So the evidence sits under our noses, locked away in a box no one can open. A neat trick, but it condemns you just the same. Flora's voice fell to a whisper. I only wanted to keep it safe, to make it vanish. I didn't think it through. Marple's eyes narrowed, her voice cut clean. You destroyed papers, you stole money, and you hid the key. But in your desperation you left a truth more damning than the evidence itself. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward the strongbox. Its door shut tight, its iron face blank. Flora's words echoed, broken and final. The key locked inside forever. Inspector Slack ordered the sleigh examined. The villagers led them to the shed, doors thrown wide. The sleigh stood waiting. Snow still clung to the runners. The horse shifted uneasily. Steam rose from its flanks. Slack ran his hand along the wood. Fresh use, he muttered. No doubt about it. He crouched. His fingers brushed the seat. Dark marks stained the fabric. He sniffed. Blood. Mrs. Jarvis gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Not Mr. Henry's blood? Slack straightened. Whose else? Too much to be a cut. Someone bled here. Recently. Marple leaned closer, her eyes calm. Her fingers touched a loose thread. Wool. Fine. Not from the sleigh itself, from a garment. Henry's blanket, she said softly. The one wrapped around him. Slack's eyes narrowed. He moved to the floor. Wax dripped along the planks, small pale beads. He scraped one with his nail. Candle wax, he said. From that lantern. Spilled when it broke. Matches the shards on Gordon's boots. Gordon stepped forward sharply. This proves nothing. A horse can throw wax. A seat can stain. Anyone could have left it. Slack's voice turned cold. Enough. You argued with him. You struck him. You dragged him here. The sleigh bears the mark of it. Flora shook her head wildly. No, it can't be true. Gordon, tell them. Say it wasn't you. But Gordon's mouth worked soundlessly. His fists clenched. His jaw trembled. Marple's gaze lingered on the sleigh. Her voice was quiet, but each word clear. The truth is written in fibers, in stains, in wax. These things do not lie. They speak louder than witnesses. Slack nodded sharply. Blood, wool, wax, 3 signs, and all point the same way. He turned to the others. Henry did not collapse by chance. He was moved, staged, set in that chair to mislead us. Mrs. Jarvis crossed herself. Her voice broke. God forgive us. Poor Mr. Henry. Flora sobbed softly. Gordon, please. Stop hiding. Tell them it was an accident. Tell them. Gordon's voice cracked. I told you already, I never meant it. I thought he was gone. I panicked. I moved him. I tried to make it neat, to make it look natural. Slack's tone cut like steel. But your neatness betrayed you. You left blood. You left wool. You left wax. Proof of staging. Proof of guilt. The sleigh stood silent, heavy with evidence. The horse stamped once, restless. The villagers murmured in fear, and Miss Marple gave the final words. Calm. Certain. Proof Gordon staged the scene. Flora sobbed into her hands. Her body shook, tears streaked her cheeks. Gordon sat slumped, face grey, eyes hollow. Inspector Slack stood before them, notebook shut, voice firm. You've told enough to damn you both, but I'll hear the rest. Speak it plain. Flora looked up first. Her voice cracked. I borrowed from the accounts. Yes. I thought I could return it. Uncle found out. He threatened to expose me. I burned the receipts. I hid the stocking. I trapped the key inside the strongbox. That is all I did. Slack's eyes narrowed. All you did? Enough to show guilt? Enough to show motive. Gordon's voice cut in. And I struck him. I admit it. I lost control. I swung the lantern. I thought it finished him. I panicked. I dragged him to the sleigh. I staged the stable. That is my crime. Flora turned to him, stricken. You fool. Why did you not tell me? Gordon shook his head. You already carried enough shame. I thought I could shield you. I thought I could make it seem accidental. Slack barked a laugh. Shield her? You exposed her. Her theft. Your violence. A family built on lies. Together you buried Henry before he drew his last breath. Dr. Haydock muttered, grim. He was breathing still when you set him in that chair. If treated at once, he might have lived. Flora cried harder. Then it's true. We killed him together. Not by plan, but by weakness. By fear. Gordon groaned. God help us. I never wanted it so. Only anger. Only desperation. And when I saw him stir beneath the blanket, I froze. I could not act. I could not save him. Miss Marple spoke softly. Her tone carried weight. Confessions of panic. Confessions of fear. They explain much. The missing stocking. The empty safe. The broken lantern. The sleigh. The false scene in the stable. Each piece falls into place. Slack snapped his notebook open again. Then we are done. Theft. Fraud. Assault leading to death. Enough for the courts. But Marple lifted her hand. Not quite, Inspector. Not quite. Her eyes rested on Flora, then on Gordon, both pale, both broken. You each confessed to sin. Borrowing, hiding, striking, staging. Yes, but Henry Westlake's death holds one more thread. One detail neither of you explained. Slack frowned. What more could there be? They've admitted everything. Marple's eyes narrowed. Her tone sharpened. Not everything. There is still one truth left in shadow, and without it, this case remains unfinished. The room went still. Even Flora's sobbing ceased. Even Gordon lifted his head. Slack leaned forward, his voice low. And what truth is that, Miss Marple? Her gaze did not waver. Her words came measured. One last truth remained. Inspector Slack straightened. His voice rang hard. That's enough. Both of you will answer before the law. Theft, fraud, deception, and a man dead by your actions. You are under arrest. He snapped his notebook shut. 2 constables stepped forward. They moved to either side of Flora and Gordon. Flora wept openly. Her shoulders sagged. Her hands trembled. She did not resist. Gordon stared ahead, hollow, his lips pressed thin. He said nothing. The villagers outside watched in silence. Faces pale, whispers spread. A family destroyed on Christmas morning. Dr. Haydock gathered his bag, his voice grim. Henry might have lived. With care, with help. But left to die in a chair, staged like a decoration. No man could survive that cruelty. Slack gave a sharp nod. Take them away. The constables led the pair out, boots crunching in the snow. The sleigh still stood nearby, blood and wax marking the boards, proof of the lie. Miss Marple remained still, her hands folded neatly, her eyes steady. Slack turned to her. "Well, Miss Marple, you've done it again. Saw past the lies. I don't know how you do it." Her tone was quiet. "Not so difficult, Inspector. I only notice the things others overlook. A dented holder, a broken lantern, a stocking missing, and footprints that did not match the story." Slack gave a wry smile. "You make it sound simple." She shook her head gently. "It is never simple. It is human. Always human." The villagers lowered their eyes. Some crossed themselves. Others whispered prayers. Christmas bells still rang faintly in the distance, yet no cheer carried here. Mrs. Jarvis wiped her face. "I never thought the day would end like this. Poor Mr. Henry. Poor house. Poor children who will learn of it." Marple touched her arm lightly. "Take comfort, my dear. The truth, once revealed, eases pain in time. But lies and secrecy only deepen it." Slack exhaled, heavy. "Well, a bitter Christmas indeed." Marple's gaze turned to the snow outside, pure white, untouched in places, but where footprints crossed, the truth had shown. Her voice softened. "Greed drives men and women to folly. Fear blinds them. Love twists into possession. And families destroy themselves long before strangers need to intervene." No one spoke. Her words hung heavy. She rose slowly, pulled her shawl closer, prepared to return to the village. The bells continued. The choir still sang, but the manor stood silent, broken. At the threshold she paused. Her final words fell with quiet certainty. "In Street Mary Mead, even Christmas snow cannot hide a guilty conscience. The trouble with secrets is, they never stay buried." Thank you, dear listener, for joining me in this mystery. Christmas holds warmth and joy, but also truth that cannot be silenced. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you listen before bed or while you walk in the morning? Tell me your tradition. I love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe. A new mystery awaits you tomorrow.